Welcome to the O Show. I'm Laura Babcock. And that's Graham Crawford.
Yeah, I'm Graham Crawford. Sorry. I forgot who I was.
You were so relaxed from your spa weekend at White Oaks.
That spa is fabulous, everybody.
Well, you know, in Hamilton, apparently we all go to White Oaks. Oh, wait a sec. That's only City Council Selection Committee for the city manager who needs to go there for some reason.
I was in disguise, though, so people may not have recognized me.
Yeah, well, some of the candidates for the job apparently last time at White Oaks showed up in disguise. I don't know if they did this past time. But you know what? When the mayor's office puts something out there that says that there were no suitable venues in Hamilton, not only do I think that that is incredibly tone deaf and not even necessary, but more than that, you know, people in Hamilton on Twitter were like, you could have had my basement. Like, I took the kids skiing. Like,
I've got a dining room.
Yeah, how about not spend my money down the road? All right, we digress. Right off the top, it's going to be a good show. Okay. The reason why I am a little bit frustrated is that we were just talking before we came on air about stress mitigation strategies, because I feel very frustrated with what's going on currently with City Hall on a number of fronts that all seem to congeal into a really glutinous, disgusting mess. I don't know what's going to solve it. Okay, so with that visual, I'm sorry if you're having dinner right now. But we are going to talk about, of course, the ridiculous Redhill scandal and how council's trying to run down the clock. And we're also going to talk about the City Hall culture that's behind that, right? And then, of course, there was Saturday's front page of the paper that I just took one look at, and I said, like, none of us should be okay with this front page. So on the front page of the Hamilton Spectator on Saturday was a huge photo of a fellow Hamiltonian sleeping behind some recycling bins on a sort of a thrown-out couch, obviously homeless and freezing and horrible situation. Then there was something about a fire where there wasn't proper maintenance of the building and people lost their lives. And then there was the fact that the city just gave $1.7 million to the Ticats. And as a collective, as an image, that front page said a lot to me. And from the response I got on social media this weekend, Graham, a lot of people, the Spec retweeted it, I just don't know how we are okay with the way the city is being managed, with how we prioritize, with how we haven't made any traction on reducing poverty and the health-related implications. So today we're going to talk about the Redhill. We're going to talk about that Code Red series from the Spectator about the state of poverty in our city. It's not better. Spoiler alert, 10 years later, it's worse. And then about the Ticats and, you know, getting $1.7 million of city tax dollars for the Grey Cup, plus our rats. So buckle up, here we go. First on the Redhill, Graham, I've been watching the last couple of days. You've been putting out a series of your iconic posters. Right. This time you have been using famous scenes from movies. I'm wondering if it's because you just opened the Westdale Theatre, so congratulations on that. We gave you a way to go last week. But your imagery was striking to me because it felt as though you, being a former ad man, that looks like you're using those kind of iconic images to try to crack through to people and try to say, come on, people, we need a judicial investigation. So what prompted your latest series of posters about the Redhill, and where do you think we are with this?
Well, first of all, I mean, the current series that I'm doing is famous movie scenes and lines. So, for example, I think we're going to need a bigger investigation.
Yeah, with the Jaws one. Yeah, that was perfect.
You know, and we're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. From Network, and then a bunch of other ones. I just wanted to use something a little different that was familiar to people, but that put our current situation in there. And we need to keep pushing for a judicial investigation. It needs to be formal, it needs to be external, and it needs to be thorough. And Laura, as you know, you've been pushing this harder than anyone, and it's been terrific. But we're 2 weeks into this since they met, you know, through the night, and we haven't heard anything.
Well, they're planned, right, as I've stated, and a lot of you, thank you, online have shared thousands of shares of the video clips I posted from the O Show and some rants. Their plan is to commit to the external independent investigation, but that doesn't mean anything legally. That's just a nice washy way of saying, okay, they won't just run their own internal one, but what are we really going to get? And then putting a 30-day maximum on the time frame is a whole lot of time to get some judicial investigation advice. So basically what they're doing, in my read, which I've, think has been confirmed, is they're trying to run out the clock. They know that people are angry. They know that it's a level of frustration. And somebody wrote to me on Twitter, they feel betrayed. It's a betrayal, right? And I take that seriously. And I really resent that there is somebody who was sitting behind a desk for 6 years that I'm paying a salary to, at least one person, who knew that my family was being put at higher rates of danger and didn't tell me. That makes me furious, right? So it's not that I'm pushing the issue. It's just that I cannot be treated this way and let them get away with it. I think it's outrageous, Hamilton. Like, what are our lives worth? What are we willing to put up with from this council? I mean, it's really disgusting. And from the staff. And so one of the things I heard, Graham, was that, of course, they're going to try to take it to the full month. They might be hearing from the experts soon, but they'll probably try to run out the clock. But as long as councillors out there at their things are hearing that, a couple of staff made a bad choice years ago, they think that we've moved on, right? They think that they're going to ride this out without actually getting a judge with subpoena power to come in and find out. Because if it's not a judicial investigation, people, we're going to get a series of recommendations in a couple of years telling us how the city should run better. We're not going to find out who kept it from us and put our families in danger.
Right. 70,000 vehicles every day are on that roadway. And as I've been saying to anyone who will listen, this is not a clerical problem. This is a cultural problem. This is not a single person who buried a report. It's not possible that happened. The question is, how high up does it go? Who did know? And what did they do about it? And we need an external person with the right kind of powers, not just an external person, but an external person with the right kind of authority to find out, to dig, to go through emails, to interview people at all levels, openly and legally, to get to the bottom of this. This is really, really serious.
And it's serious on a number of levels for me. One is, of course, the fact that people knew, and I don't believe for 1 minute one person knew. So how far up did this knowledge go? The former city manager, Chris Murray, we haven't heard a peep from him on this. He was on the Redhill file before he became city manager.
He headed up the Redhill file.
Right.
He wasn't just on it. Yeah.
He headed it up. So is it reasonable to expect that some damaging information comes back about the state of the road and it never went up to senior leadership or never went up to him? We don't know. But I'd like to find that out. I think it's pretty important. And councillors. Lots of councillors very involved with things that have to do with transportation, public works, radio, all that kind of stuff. None of them knew in 6 years. I mean, if you've spent any time at City Hall, all you have to do is go to the smoking pit at the back and you find out half the city's business, right?
So true.
So, I mean, please, I don't buy it for a second that more people didn't know. So the question to me is not only who knew and when did they know it. There was a mayor at the time, Mayor Bettina. Then in 2018, when the report resurfaced and it was buried for the election, there was a mayor then too, right? Mayor Eisenberger. And some of the councillors who are still on council were there. What did they know at that time? I need to know so that I can know who to trust and who not to trust, who deserves to represent me and who doesn't, who deliberately withheld information that put my family in jeopardy. Like, I need to know that. But the other thing, Graham, is that how can we have a city culture, a leadership culture, which you're an expert in this, starts at the very top. It simply does. How can we have a culture that had such bad cultural reviews a few years ago, never seemed to get any better? Things like the Redhill probably is not the only thing that we've been lied to or there's been cover-ups about. How can we as Hamiltonians just let that go without accountability?
Well, we mustn't let it go. And you're absolutely right, Laura. The corporate culture survey work that was done a few years back was, and I've seen many of these using the same instrument. The Denison instrument is a global standard. The results, they were the worst I'd ever seen. I've never seen numbers that bad. And they spoke of a culture of fear. People wanted to speak up, but were afraid to. They were going to lose their jobs. And all of that has fed into certainly the Redhill situation and many other issues. And I'll tell you this, if I was the mayor or a councillor and I felt that I was betrayed, as some of them are saying they feel, I'd be standing up shouting on the desk. And what are they doing? Everybody's quiet. And maybe they've been given legal counsel to stay quiet, because I think the implications could be, in the many millions of dollars, many millions of dollars.
So possibly they're told a rumor of a class action lawsuit, or there might be other legal, but the advice that they might get from the city solicitor is to protect the corporation of the city, to protect the bottom line, fine. But as leaders, as people who represent all of our interests and the future of our city, that best place to raise a child bit, which we'll get to in a minute, this whole idea that they are supposed to be improving our lives. How can we possibly have people who are supposed to be doing that not want to find out what happened in real time, who was responsible, so that changes can be made that aren't just recommendations at a high level about some kind of process thing. They can figure that out now on their own. Right. It's about leadership. It's about a culture. And you have talked over the years, Graham, about a culture of mediocrity. Yeah. When you accept mediocrity, you don't aspire for more. I have many times railed that as a city, we don't let ourselves have nice things. We don't somehow think we deserve to be vibrant and successful and lift everybody up and have beautiful new harbor fronts. And this idea that somehow we should accept less has always frustrated me. This is a situation where our councillors should be standing up saying, okay, enough, enough. If things are going on like this inside of our city, it affects the culture of our employees, right. It affects their mental health, it affects our safety on the roads. Let's not even think about the trucks. How many trucking companies, Hamilton? Do you own a trucking company? Do you use a fleet of trucking to get your products from here to there? Are you involved in just-in-time delivery? Do you have anything to do with that entire trucking transportation system? How do you feel about your trucks being on that road? About not knowing? I can't believe that trucking companies aren't suing the city. I mean, imagine the damage to the trucks or the risk to the trucks. There's so much about the Redhill that is bigger than just whether or not people drive too fast on a road on rainy days.
Which they do.
Which some do, but it's not. And if I hear one more person say, well, I never got in an accident, so it can't be real. Right. It's real. We're not making this up. And we need to find out who did it. And all I'd like people to think about is imagine this happened in another city. Imagine, pick a city. Do you think that city would just say, oh, well, we deserve it. I guess we, same old, same old. They put us on, we spent a lot of money on a road. They build it wrong. They don't tell us that it's not working. They put us in danger. People die. We ask them for some actual truth. They lie. More people die. Oh, well, it's Hamilton. We're never going to get better. Do you really believe that, Hamilton? Do you believe it? Because I sure as heck don't think it's good enough for us. We deserve better. Let me just say, Laura,
good enough is not good enough.
It's not.
We must insist on excellence. Mm-hmm. There's no reason we can't. It doesn't have to cost more money to be excellent. You just have to think a little harder, that's all.
And we have some good thinkers around the table who have joined council in the last few months, and I know you're going to give them some credit later. And I have hope that there are some councillors around that table who do not want to, as Judy Partridge said at the last council meeting, this is how we do things around here.
This table, yeah.
They don't want that. They know that we all deserve better, but I'm telling you, Hamilton, if you don't demand from your councillor today and call the mayor's office and say judicial investigation, nothing less, they're going to think that you're going to accept less than being respected and less than the dignity you deserve.
And I've called my councillor and I've called the mayor.
That's why I'm so passionate about this. It's about our dignity. It's about our dignity. Okay, speaking of this, 10 years after The Spectator launched an amazing study, the Code Red report investigation into poverty in our city and all of the things that are impacted by poverty, 10 years later, after lots of efforts, we still have not progressed. And Graham, the city's motto of to make this the best place to raise a child and to age successfully. Well, for a long time, it was just the best place to raise a child. So I've got a chart that my son, because I read the Code Red with him, he's 10 years old, he searched on Google, and he came up with this map. It's not part of Code Red, but I just thought it was incredible. So look at the Ontario average, this is from a 26 census, and the Hamilton average. And the group that is experiencing the most poverty and disproportionately to the rest of the province are children in Hamilton. Yeah. Okay, it's right there. I put it up because, my son's 10. He goes, let's see if there's any pictures to help explain this to him. He found this, and he looked and he goes, why are our children having more poverty? Why are we worse than the rest of Ontario? And I'm like, that's a very good question. So, Graham, your thoughts on this and what maybe we can do about it?
Well, kudos to the Spec. I mean, as troubling as this series of articles is to read, and so we read the third one today. It's so important that people read this and try to figure out what is it that we can do, what levers can we pull to try to make changes, and goodness knows people have been trying. But you also have to. I sat in the council chambers when council debated the living wage for part-time workers or seasonal workers. And the pushback was, oh, they're students, as if to suggest that every student is living with mom and dad and doesn't really need to make a lot of money or a fair living wage amount of money. But it wasn't just students. They had not done their homework, and they pushed back, and for $400,000 a year, they said no. And
didn't they spend $425,000 on a consultant's report they didn't read about ward boundaries last year?
Oh, there was that one, yeah. Apparently they didn't read the Redhill one either, but and I don't know what that cost.
But at least this one, council knew that they had asked for, and when it came back, they actually told the media they weren't planning on reading it.
And look, it's a complex balance. I get that. There are many moving parts. There's no simple answer to this. There's 1,000 things you have to do at the same time. But when you say no to basic stuff like a living wage for people in your employ, I think most Hamiltonians would say, I would invest in that. That's a good thing. That's the kind of leadership I look for from my council and in my city and by my city. And yet we turned it down. We said no. A living wage for people who we view as already having enough money.
So
it's unacceptable.
Best place to raise a child and age successfully, but the city employer itself that's supposed to set best practice because we're paying their bills doesn't do a living wage. And there have been numerous poverty initiatives, anti-poverty initiatives, poverty mitigation initiatives that have gone before council. It doesn't seem as though there's a full grasp of the severity and just the connectivity of it, right? I mean, people have to get out of their mind the idea that, oh, that person just doesn't try hard enough. The impact it has, first of all, the reasons for poverty are complex. And if you're not, consider yourself, lucky, because honestly, once you know a little bit more about it, it's ridiculous to judge people. Beyond that, the impact in terms of costs on our healthcare system for people who are living in precarious lifestyles and they're living in precarious employment, even, in the gig economy, not making enough money. They go to emergency rooms, which costs us all so much more. I mean, it affects us all on so many levels. So even if you don't care that people are living in poverty, understand that you're paying for it anyway, right? So if you just want to be pragmatic, we have to do more. And Terry Cook from the Hamilton Community Foundation made a comment in the paper that some tough choices have to be made. What do you think those should be, Graham? Or what's your understanding of what some of the solutions or choices might be?
Well, I know that Rob McIsaac, and thanks to Terry Cook for saying what he has said, he's taking this very, very seriously. Rob McIsaac, I had heard talk about this before, but he's mentioned in the series as well, is trying to take health care out to people in their homes before they need to come to emergency, or if they have a family doctor and they can get to their family doctor in a timely fashion. The challenge, Laura, is I don't know if it's 100 things or 1,000 things, but the point is it's extraordinarily complex.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything.
No, in fact, I think if anything, it means we need to double our efforts. And the city can take leadership in this. And when it denies people a living wage because some councillors view it sort of differently, that's not a good sign. But I think that truly working with our healthcare agencies in town, the City of Hamilton, all of the support services, but that's been happening. It's not as if they haven't tried to collaborate, but it hasn't worked. And so we have to step back and say, okay, what can we do differently? Because to just do more of what we've already been doing, unfortunately, this series
let me throw out a political consideration. I don't mind investing in any kind of poverty reduction or mitigation strategies that we can have. Better coordination of our services. Tell me what the list is and I will do what I can. And I think a lot of Hamiltonians reading the Code Red feel the same exact way. Just where can I plug in? How can I help? What does that look like, right? Stop wasting money, council. Just stop wasting money. You don't need to go to Niagara-on-the-Lake for meetings. You don't need to commission consultants' reports that you don't read. You don't need to throw money at projects, and I know people probably think I'm talking about the Grey Cup. If it's going to bring us back $30 million in investment, I'd like to see some of that investment channeled back towards poverty. Then I can take our tax dollars going to help a big event. I get that it's connected, as long as we see some good outcomes. But stop wasting money on actual things that you don't use. There is money flowing around some city departments, slush funds, as I call them, that if people understood fully what was going on, they'd be in front of City Hall with placards right now. Yeah. So there's a solution. If there's a limited pie of tax dollars, and we have to keep it a limited pie, use the pie better. Seriously, I'm not going to put up with any more stupid waste. It's just, there are people suffering on our streets right now because we're not giving them the services that they deserve. Sorry, quickly, we got to move on. But on the topic of the 1.7 million, because it was front page right under the poverty story, do you think the Ticats should be getting that for the Grey Cap?
Well, I don't know about 1.7 million. Do I think the Ticats should get cooperation and collaboration with the city? Honestly, I think yes. Sure. I'm not a football fan, but there are plenty of people in town who are. I can hardly say, gee, I don't think the Ticats should get anything when, to be perfectly frank, the Westdale Theatre was given some money by the city of Hamilton. It's a different kind of cultural entity.
That's a good point.
So I do think that we need to figure out how to balance it. Throwing money, again, I can't judge the 1.7. Is it the right amount of money? Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't know, because they keep everything secret from us. But certainly, if you could prove a return of $35 million on 1.7, I mean, really, that makes sense. And a lot of it is in kind. It's not, we're not literally spending the money. These are fixed costs in some cases, but we're allocating them towards the Grey Cup event. So I don't feel as badly as some of my friends feel about it.
As long as, like we said, that front page of the paper, if you can look at that picture of a Hamiltonian laying there and be okay with it, I mean, that's the issue. It's not all on the Ticats. That's an investment. I understand it. But we have to make sure our priorities are right. Okay, we've run almost out of time, so your rant, sir.
My rant today is about when to say yes to the pension. Recently, in the last couple of days, Councillor Sam Marula has been on a bit of a tear, and I don't quite understand where it's coming from. But what he tweeted today was Freedom 55 2022. In other words, I'm retiring at 2022. I think, although he's a bit cryptic. But as it turns out, based on some people I asked, that is when he qualifies for his full pension. So maybe he is out of here in 3.5 years. It was just about the pension. Tom Jackson qualified for his pension, I don't know, 50 or 60 years ago, I think. You know, he's the highest paid customer service rep in the city of Hamilton. You know, Tom, maybe it's time you took your pension too. Well, you need to know when it's time to step out of the way. And let's also not forget that the council changed their compensation package a few years back. It used to be 2/3 salary and 1/3 tax-free benefit, and they changed that to 100% salary. Why? Because pensions are calculated on the best 5 years, the last 5 years. Guess what that does? It boosts their pension, their lifetime pension. It's time to move on if you feel you're done.
Thank you. Great rant. And for further context on that, when you're talking about Sam's meltdown, it was him raging about democracy and about the grief that he gets as a public servant. And I made the comment, I think he's conflating democracy with demagoguery. That's the point, is you've got to listen. And which prompted my quick rant. Someone made the comment, why do these councillors take the job to either just use it as a stepping stone to higher office or to become potentates? Which I hadn't seen that word in a long time. It kind of looks like potatoes, but it's potentates, which means little dictators with their little fiefdoms. And isn't that what we've got with some of these councillors? So you know what? As the person on Twitter said, like, when do they get to that point where they stop serving us? Well, I hope the new members on council don't get to that point. And I hope, to your point, Graham, the ones who are at that point, just get out. Go. If you don't like it, go. Let's have a by-election and have somebody with some fresh ideas and energy. Okay, let's get to our way to goes and end on a high note. Go ahead.
Well, I have a way to go that mentions Laura Babcock and Robert Krabavik for giving up their Valentine's Day evening to help with the premiere of the Westdale Theatre. Imagine working on the night you're supposed to be snuggling.
We met right here at Cable 14 working, so we love that. That's part of our romance. But thank you. That was a fabulous night. You didn't need to thank me,
so
but
exciting.
Oh, we loved it. It was a red carpet special. To the Hamilton Community Foundation and the SPEC for the awareness and the leadership that they're trying to bring to the Code Red poverty crisis in our city. They called it a 5-alarm fire. We have to hear that language clearly. So way to go.
And my last way to go is to Councillors Maureen Wilson, Narinder Nunn, and John Paul Danko for being so articulate when they challenge the status quo. You can look around the room and people put their heads down, but let me tell you, they are just amazing. They are really saying what needs to be said.
Gives me hope.
Yeah.
Way to go. And to the citizens who have been engaging on the Redhill cover-up scandal and the city manager selection opaqueness, keep calling council and the mayor. We need a judicial investigation, so way to go. Very, very quickly, Graham, one thing people in this city can do?
Yep. Demand more from council.
Oh, I love it. Demand more for your dignity and for the dignity of our fellow citizens. Okay, I want to thank Madison Avenue for doing my hair and for the French for the yumminess and for you for watching. If it's local politics, it's on the O Show here on Cable 14.